here?
I want to talk about the Dell Luna concept laptop.
Yes.
This is super cool. Here's Dell's blog post. And I think the title here says it all. Pushing the boundaries of sustainable PC design. Concept Luna.
Sort of.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. Full disclosure, before we jump into this topic, I am an investor in Framework Laptops who is also striving to make a more repairable, more sustainable laptop and actually has a product. So that's something. I reached out to Dell and I have asked now multiple times to get hands-on with this thing because I am extremely interested. I want to cover it. I want to talk about it. And the answer has been categorically no. We will not give you any hands-on with this, which leads me to believe that it may not be as far along as I would like it to be.
Right.
I am still really excited about a lot of the stuff that they're talking about here. So it was designed in collaboration with Intel and has a focus on eco-friendliness and repairability. How, you might ask? All right, let's get you through that. So first is reducing the carbon footprint of the product through manufacturing changes, like reducing the size of the motherboard by 75%. Okay, yeah, but the trend towards smaller motherboards because they're just trying to make thinner laptops has been a thing for a long time. And reducing component counts by 20%. Dell claims this could reduce the carbon footprint of the motherboard by 50%. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Using less materials, definitely a plus. This is cool. Moving the motherboard to the display portion of the laptop, which would put it closer to the outside of the chassis and improve heat dissipation. Now, it's very clear from hearing that this is not the kind of product that would be in the performance tier. This would be something that would be in more like a B2B, a Chromebook sort of class of product. If you're expecting to presumably passively cool it, and if you're going to have light enough components that the whole thing isn't going to tip over like a lot of the convertibles that we saw over the years. Batteries with advanced deep cycle cells. This one I'm really interested in because if we could have batteries that lasted longer, obviously that's going to be a freaking plus. Stamped aluminum construction to minimize scrap. This is something that I've been very torn about over the years. I don't know if I've really talked about it, but machined like one unibody aluminum chassis, which Apple famously popularized back with, what generation would that have been? Sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I don't know if Apple was the first to do it, but boy, were they ever the first to do it well. When they released their first unibody Mac with basically the keyboard side down, and then the whole thing is just machined out, giving it this rigidity that we just hadn't seen before. Like those things were such a game changer, right? The problem is that all that aluminum, you remove it from this block of aluminum to create what is essentially an empty shell,
shreds. Yeah.
And you're utterly shredding it. Which, yes, you can melt it back down, and you can create a new block of aluminum out of the shreds. But there's a lot of overhead. There's a lot of energy involved in that process, and it's not that simple. So switching to stamped aluminum, presuming that they can still keep excellent structural rigidity, could be an excellent way to not create as much scrap aluminum. They've got fewer layers in the display. And then when we get into reusing, repairing, and recycling, they want to reduce the number of screws in the device from hundreds to just 4 for more convenience and shorter repair times.
Sure.
And they've designed a new PCB made with flax fiber in the base and water-soluble polymer as glue, allowing recyclers to more easily separate metal and components. That is super cool.
Forgive me if I turn my nose up. I have not watched Louis Rossman's video yet, and maybe I'm well out of turn here.
Oh, did Rossman make a video already?
Apparently there is one. Someone in the chat mentioned that there is one.
Of course he did.
Yeah. But I just
TLDR us, guys. TLDR us.
Yeah, let us know what he has to say. But I don't see anything on here about replacement parts. I don't see anything on here about schematics. I don't see anything on here that has anything to do with sustainability other than things that would immediately save them money. Which is great. If you can do both, if you can save yourself money and be more sustainable for the environment.
Then it really raises the question why you didn't do it already.
Why weren't you doing this already? But Dell has done things in the past. Dell has had laptops with swappable CPUs. Dell has had laptops with like huge panels on the bottom where you can swap out a very large amount of things. Maybe it's not as swappable or maintainable as a framework laptop, but there was genuinely like you could swap the CPU, you could swap the RAM, you could swap the drives. And they had these panels. This was really common back then. They had these panels that would show a symbol for the thing that was under it. So they'd have like, this is the RAM panel. It's 1 screw to remove that. And you know what? Now that they're down to 4 screws, that sounds great. That's cool. But this really is like, I feel like it's a far from far enough.
I think that's fair. Something that we haven't talked about enough is there are actually conventional or like traditional laptop manufacturers that are doing a way better job than sort of I think someone like an Apple is at this point. I don't think they're at the point where they provide actual schematics for their main boards, but HP has excellent resources that anyone can access that includes teardown guides for many of their laptops.
That's cool.
I don't know if it includes all their consumer stuff, but I know that a lot of their business stuff does have resources like that available. Again, I don't know how well they archive it. But I think that what Dell is doing here, here's my most positive spin on it. What Dell is doing here is they are joining the conversation.
Yeah.
And this is a really important conversation.
I feel like they're listening from outside the door.
We need to not, but the thing is, we need to not be one of those communities that says, you know what? You're not a good enough ally. You should ally better. So I think what we should do is we should take every ally we can get and applaud everything that they do that is good while continuing to call out everything they do that is suspect. So I want to see, like you said, availability of schematics. I want to see a commitment to that. I want to see a commitment like Framework has made to allowing these motherboards to live a new life in a thin and light chassis as a desktop, right? So I want to see that too. I want to see more. I want to see hands-on with it. I want to know if this is a science fair project.
It feels like it. Okay, so I do agree with you. I just, reading this, it really does feel like a science fair project. And without schematics and without replacement parts, honestly, a lot of the things that they did to make it more environmentally friendly, which is cool and good, sounds like it's going to hurt its longevity as a product. They sound like things that could result in the bricking or death of the device quicker and more easily. And if it's not easier to repair alongside that, then this might not even reduce waste.
Yeah.
So like, I'm really not sold. I appreciate that they're trying, but like, I feel like there's some really big things missing here. And the fact that they're not letting anyone see it, there's no schematics, whatever, is like, is this even a thing? Like, I want to see more. I'm definitely, I'm open to the conversation. If Dell pushes this forward, if they do schematics, if they hopefully announce that we're going to do some replacement.
We're like actually going to do this instead of just like, we're going to try to transition by 2030.
Yeah, then that's awesome. Heck, yes. You don't have to do it exactly the same way that Framework does.
Sure.
If you get part of the way there, that's still really cool. But I'm not necessarily even convinced this is part of the way there. Like, straight up, just reading this purely just sounds like a really cheap to manufacture low-end laptop.
Yeah.
That they are luckily able to say is sustainable, which is cool. But I'm not even convinced of that, because a lot of the things that they're talking about make it sound like it's going to get damaged really easily, which is concerning when it's not more repairable. So I don't know.
So that's fair.
Maybe I'm totally out to lunch. Hopefully I am. Honestly.
Yep. I mean, so just to be clear, guys, Dell isn't committing to release this tomorrow. This is a concept. If anything, this is the kind of thing that they're saying, hey, maybe in the next 10 years. But again, back to not wanting to crap on someone who is at least drawing attention to this problem.
True.
Dell could have easily just kept their mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because drawing attention to this, making people think about, sustainability in laptops. Like, here, let's do a little exercise. I have not done this. Sustainable laptop. Okay, what am I going to find? Oh, good. Dell bought an ad. I'm going to find leafscore.com. I have no idea what the heck leafscore.com is. Okay, it's all Dell stuff. Oh, for crying out loud. Well,
So it feels like marketing for a very cheap to manufacture laptop.
okay, so the only thing other than Dell, we've got an HP buyer's guide and we've got a framework article.
Framework Sustainable DIY.
So Dell could have just kept their mouths shut and they could have just focused on products that they're actually selling, right? Because on the one hand, yes, they're creating positive headlines for their company and for their brand. But on the other hand, they're creating all of those positive headlines for something that generates them literally zero revenue. The only options on this page to actually buy anything are an HP sustainability shopping guide that, as far as I can tell, is just a bunch of Spectre laptops. Like this is just a product page.
Yeah.
Okay, they're Energy Star certified. Sure. All right, HP. Or an article about the framework. So out of things you can actually buy, 0 of them are Dell. So we shouldn't discourage Dell from talking about this stuff. We want them to we want them to talk about it. We want them to make people aware of it. All right. So that's the deal with Project Luna. Oh, actually, there's a couple of discussion topics here from our new writer who hasn't passed probation yet. Which of these features would you most like to see implemented into your laptop is one of the discussion topics. And maybe more importantly, Dell has eschewed investigating the upgradability aspect that is a core part of Framework's design philosophy. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Does easy upgradability perhaps encourage consumer wastefulness? Should people not just buy exactly what they need at the time if they're able to, rather than taking a module out and putting a new module in?
How do you know that's not what they're doing?
Consumers?
Yeah.
Well, I think if your sales pitch is, hey, buy this and then add stuff to it later and then chuck that other stuff. It depends. As long as there's a clear ongoing purpose for that thing that you're getting rid of, or if there's like a downstream use for it, like, okay, my Oura Ring, for example, I just upgraded to the Gen 3. And for the Gen 2, because, it's like sized to you, right? Like there's the odds of you knowing someone who will fit exactly the same ring size. They're not 0, but they're also not infinitely large. They've got a program where they will send you a prepaid shipping label. You just chuck your Gen 2 ring in a box, and then they donate it to programs that are doing like sleep and activity monitoring studies and stuff like that. So they've created this clear downstream purpose for it.
That sounds really cool.
That makes me feel like, okay, yeah, I'm upgrading for a feature that, quite frankly, I don't really need. But as long as that other one will continue to be used and will continue to sort of contribute in some meaningful way, then I'm content with that. So I don't want Framework to fall into a trap where they're like, oh yeah, just buy the entry-level one today. So we're essentially manufacturing scrap, and then throw away the pieces as you upgrade it later. Like those types of messages do exist, and I don't want that to be it. I'm not saying they're doing that now at all.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that upgradability is not just obviously the answer. It's not necessarily a good thing.
And this might be an absolute pipe dream, probably is, to be very clear. But I think if there was somehow standards to certain components within, how like RAM?
Yep.
Right? If that was spread out a little bit further to more components,
sure,
then you could end up with places like FreeGeek just having a bunch of components for laptops and they can rebuild things together. And
yeah,
stuff
for
like
sure.
That.
Yeah, I could see that.
As long as there's like heavy uniqueness within laptops, which has been a thing forever, it's tough.
It's
going to be pretty hard. Yeah.
It's pretty tough.